Hello, so our team name is Powerpuff Girls, and this is for our capstone public health class. And our presentation is about addressing rates of obesity in children in Kentucky due to food insecurity. BMI is the measure used to calculate and determine childhood obesity. If a child's BMI is at or above the 95th percentile, then he or she is considered obese. Some of the adverse health outcomes are higher risk of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, increased insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, breathing problems, and asthma, along with many other more immediate health risks. A contributor to childhood obesity is food insecurity, which is a lack of consistent access to enough food for an active, healthy lifestyle. Here we have two figures, one which shows the childhood obesity rates in the United States by state, and the other one which shows the rates of food insecurity in the United States by state. In the United States, childhood obesity alone roughly costs $14 billion annually in direct expenses. In the years 2017 to 2018, the prevalence of obesity for children ages 2 to 19 years old was around 19.3%. Kentucky has the highest prevalence for childhood obesity in the nation, with 38% of the children in that state being considered obese or overweight. And for that reason, our study population focuses specifically on Kentucky, as well as Kentucky is among the top 10 states that experiences food insecurity, with more than half of Kentucky's counties having a child's food insecurity rate of 20% or higher.
So food insecurity and socioeconomic factors such as income, education, and location are contributing causes of obesity. A lack of income could prevent individuals from purchasing healthy items. In addition, the lack of produce prevalent in these communities make it hard for them to access foods, nutritious foods. Furthermore, even with resources implemented in such communities, without the proper education, people will not know how to utilize the resources. Protective factors that are useful in combating risk factors include increased access to healthy foods, nutritional education, and physical activity.
These are the methods we use to conduct our research. The databases we used are PubMed, Google Scholar, and UMass libraries. Some of our key search terms were childhood obesity, body mass index, BMI, adolescence, nutrition, food insecurity, interventions, and school-based. Some of our inclusion criteria were studies that were randomized control trials or quasi-experimental trials, as well as studies that examined food-related behaviors in adolescents along with their parents. Some exclusion criteria were studies that did not examine BMI outcomes and or behavioral change.
We utilized 8 studies that evaluated the relationship between food insecurity and childhood obesity. All of them used adolescents under the age of 15 as their focus population. The interventions we included was nutrition education, community-based, which are community gardens, and parental involvement. The interventions that increase education and parental involvement work best, as it was found that a child's eating habits can be improved if the parents' eating habits are also improved. And we targeted fruit and vegetable intake as it is associated with a reduction in the consumption of high fat and high sugar foods, and in turn, a decreased BMI. So some of the strengths were increasing community and parental involvement, which led to decreased BMI in children. Providing nutrition education helped inform children and parents of healthy eating habits. Access to affordable healthy foods through community gardens can provide an affordable option for fresh food and also increase a sense of community. Some of the limitations were the need for funding, as the startup costs for gardens and out-of-school nutrition programs are a lot. They are also time consuming for parents to attend, also nutrition classes and the garden maintenance, because they may not be able to attend due to work. Participants also had a lack of report back, which included lost follow-up due to the time constraints from parents. Social desirability bias was also a factor when reporting on what occurs at home, participants are likely to not tell the truth on physical activity if they're actually partaking in the physical activity. We find that these interventions would be beneficial for the state of Kentucky and would assist in the decrease of childhood obesity rates.
So the goal of our interventions are to improve nutrition knowledge, increase access to healthy foods, as well as influence healthy lifestyle changes. And these interventions will be implemented through the use of school-based curriculums, as adolescents and children are more receptive to changes here, nutrition education, and parental engagement. So again, students are more receptive to behavioral changes in school. So a teacher taught curriculum, including recommendations for a healthy diet and physical activity, will be beneficial. In addition, the increase of nutritious foods in cafeterias will make healthy foods more easily available to students. In addition, incentives in place to make sure students are motivated to participate will also be essential. Some pros of this intervention is the improvement of nutrition knowledge in participants, healthy lifestyle changes such as an increased intake of fruits and vegetables, and better BMI percentiles. Some challenges of this intervention include participant motivation and engagement.
Another recommendation that we had was the increase of parental engagement and overall familial engagement. We thought to incorporate parents into intervention programs in order for them to display as role models to their children. So hopefully to increase physical activity and the intake of fruits and vegetables. We were thinking about creating like sort of a feedback communication system that could be accessed through like an online portal as a way for parents to communicate with the intervention program directors in order to determine what has been working for the child, what has not, and what could possibly be improved. And we also talked about hosting sort of family nights at like local community schools or community centers in order to just overall increase community engagement as well as family engagement. So these would essentially be nights that could be devoted to learning how to cook a fully nutritious and balanced meal. So this would be hopefully directed by like a registered dietitian or a nutritionist that could kind of teach the entire family how to manage like portion control and the incorporation of fruits and vegetables. We thought that this would be a great idea because with like psychology, if a child sees something that their parent is doing, they're more likely to engage in that. So like going on walks, drinking more water, incorporating more fruits and vegetables into their diet. One of the cons that we found with this sort of feedback portal communication system was the social desirability bias. So it's essentially a type of response bias that occurs when people are answering surveys or just answering questions in a manner that will be viewed favorably by others. So if you're thinking about a low socioeconomic neighborhood with single parents, they are more than likely to be working 1 to 2 jobs while the child is in school. So they are less likely to tell the truth on these responses to the program coordinators or directors, just because they are afraid of being looked down upon if they're not like adequately eating correctly at home or kind of having the best role as a role model. Another thing could be time and language barriers. So in one of the studies, it was mentioning how there wasn't enough time during the after school program, at the end of the after school program, when the parent was picking up their child to communicate with the program director. And that was just because if they had to rush to go pick up another child or they were just coming from work and stuff like that. Another thing was that there isn't much access to electronics within like low socioeconomic neighborhoods. So we're not sure how that would be beneficial with the communication system if they don't have an electronic device to communicate. Another recommendation we had was the use of implementing like community gardens. So through the use of community gardens, children in areas that experience food insecurity are able to have access to healthy foods, which in turn serve as a protective factor against childhood obesity. So there's not much they can do to increase their fruit and vegetable intake if they don't have the actual fruit and vegetables. And depending on the area that they live in, it just might be too costly for their parents. So the community gardens are a way to ensure that they have free access to an abundance of fruit and vegetables. One of the pros is that it would obviously increase the access to healthy foods and decrease the consumption of fatty and sugary foods, just because that in the US, fatty and sugary foods are much more cheaper than fruits and vegetables. One of the cons is that this isn't something that's easy to put together. You have to think about the cost, the location of the host of the community garden, getting like city work permits and stuff like that, gathering a team of volunteers who are willing to help create the community garden, equipment, so such as seeds, shovels, wheelbarrows, all of those, and also the overall geographical location. So if they're on like the East Coast, they're more likely to have like longer, colder winters, so they don't have the direct meats of a community garden. And also we thought about how with like government assistance, they could potentially work with like the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP, to kind of incorporate another way to increase fruits and vegetables within like the low socioeconomic populations.
In conclusion, childhood obesity is very prevalent in the United States today, and food insecurity is the main risk factor. But through the implementation of community gardens, nutrition education, and family engagement, we can work to reduce childhood obesity by targeting risk factors of food insecurity. Although individually all three recommendations have positive results, the ideal solution would be to utilize all three strategies. And these are our works cited.